everything is kind of disheveled around me from when I was hanging prints yesterday, but I just kind of wanted to film this update here so that I could see how much of the things in the background you can see. And it's not a lot, but I think when this side is full as well, it will at least create some background, because something that I really didn't like about filming here is that it looks like the wall is empty. So even though you can't really see what's there, at least you can see that there is something there, I guess. But welcome to this week's reading vlog. We're going to do a little bit of a themed one this week, but only slightly, because I am going to read nothing but arcs this week, because I still have an arc from December which I've started this morning. I also have one from early January, and I have 3 that are coming up. So ideally I would read 5 books this week. Realistically, I would probably read about 3 of them, but that is better than none. So the one that I started on my lunch, didn't end up reading anything last night, and I've only read around 10 pages today, but that is Captive of Wolves by Eva Chase. So the release date on this was the 6th of December. It is an indie fantasy romance. It is also on my Bookplay TBR to read an ebook. I have an e-arc of this on NetGalley, and I'm only 10 pages in, so I can't tell you a great deal about it, but it follows a girl who is being held captive by 4 fae, and she is rescued by 4 very attractive fae males who also keep her in captivity, but like a nicer captivity, I guess. I have been told that this is a reverse harem book. I still have yet to read a reverse harem book. I have quite a few of them now, so I do hope I enjoy at least that element. Really not sure how it's going to go in that regard, like whether that is going to be a trope that I enjoy, but I guess this week we're going to be finding out. So as I have just barely started that, there is nothing that I can tell you about it. But today I have opened Grace and Honey again this morning. There is very limited stock at the minute. I mentioned this around Christmas time, but I'm switching the way that I work from made to order, so essentially everything being available when you order it, I make it, to having pre-made stock. So I will make the stock, then put it for sale, and then you guys can order it. The main reason that I'm doing this is because I just got overwhelmed so much last year, because I have over 50 candles. So having that many and having to make them, and there's some that are less popular than others, so really popular ones I can make huge batches and just put them into every order that's ordered them. I'd find that I'd be getting into the flow, and then I'd come across an order where somebody had ordered like a real obscure candle, which would then set me back in things. Like, I can keep track of my fragrance, I can keep track of my wax in my jars, but there's some things that are just harder to keep track of, like dye. So like unexpectedly running out of dye, having to order it, and things were all just like problems that I was encountering. Hopefully this way there will be none of those problems. However, it will mean for you guys that there is less choice. But on the plus side, dispatch times are like a matter of days as opposed to weeks, which is a significant difference. So link in description box as usual if you want to check that out. I'm going to be making my first batch of candles since December tomorrow, but I don't have much wax left, so it won't be too many, and I'm just kind of like easing myself back into that, because mentally I never want to work again, you know. No, to be fair, I am refreshed, and this way I can keep it manageable, because I can manage the stock flow. If I feel like I'm going to get overwhelmed, I just won't put as much up for sale. It's as simple as that. And I'm glad that I've finally been able to switch over to that way of working as opposed to how I was working before, which was very overwhelming. Aside from that, I've edited all of last week's vlog. I've also edited a clip for a collab that somebody asked me for, and I have a couple of thumbnails I could do with making, but it is almost 5 p.m. and I'm making spaghetti bolognese for dinner, and that takes probably like just over an hour for me to make it and for it to cook. So I actually think I'm just gonna go get started with that. I'm gonna do some reading tonight, and that is all I have planned. I have live sprints with Ashley tomorrow, and I'll be making candles tomorrow. But yeah, I'm back at work, so back to the usual 8 till 6 Monday to Friday grind, which is all fun stuff, and then working occasionally on weekends as well. But aside from that, yeah, I don't have much on for this week, I don't think. Hello. So first off, does anybody get pre-live show anxiety if you are a person who does live shows? Every single time I have a live show, like I'm really excited to do reading sprints tonight, but every time I have a live show it gets to a couple of hours before, like where the next main thing I'm doing is going to be a live show, and I just get anxious about it, and there's really no need to, because it's not it's not an anxiety inducing event at all. But that is currently where I'm at. I'm doing live sprints with Gavin, Ashley, and also no Cody at 9 p.m, but it's not even 8 p.m. yet. So I thought that I would come and check in with you guys because I'm actually around 45% of the way through Captive of Wolves. It is a new adult fantasy romance, and it follows this girl who is being kept in a cage by this group of fae, and they have been taking her blood from her. So I think it's like the end of the first chapter or the beginning of the second chapter, another group of fae come in and they are looking for this tonic that the people who own the house supposedly have, and they find this girl and they realize that her blood must be the tonic. Now all of the fae in here, they are of the Seelie court, and they all shift into wolves. However, the way it should work is that when they shift into wolves, they should pretty much still be themselves, but what has happened is that the full moon is forcing them to shift and driving them absolutely like wild, and they can't control themselves. So the main character, who's called Talia, her blood kind of brings them back to their senses, so they take her and keep her in their home. Like, she has a bedroom, she's kind of like a guest except she's not allowed to leave, and the main character is very torn about this because for the last 8 years she has lived in a cage. She has been treated worse than an animal, and these guys are still kind of keeping her in captivity. Although they feed her, she has a bedroom, they wash her. Well, they don't physically wash her, I'm sure they would love to because I'm pretty sure this is going to get smutty at some point, but they allow her to wash. She can roam around the home and stuff, and each of these 4 fae are quite different. We have the one who is the leader of the cadre. He reminds me of Tamlin at the beginning of Avatar, where Tamlin doesn't really want Feyre there, but he needs her there and like he likes her, I guess, so he tolerates her and warms to her a bit. Then we have August, who is the youngest of the 4, and he really likes to cook and he's real sweet. We have Wit, who kind of reminds me a bit of like a Cassian character, very dry, very sarcastic, also has a little bit of an issue with addiction. And then we have, is the last one called Kellen, and he's an arsehole and he hates humans for some reason, but I've yet to figure out why, and he's just like horrible. The fae have stopped having human servants because of the things that he does to them, which is pretty much terrorize them. Nobody really wants him in the cadre, but because of his like family connections, he's in their cadre as well. So it's a slow burn, I think. I know I was looking up some more stuff from Eva Chase last night, and some of her stuff says medium burn on it, and I forgot to have a look what the synopsis said for Captive of Wolves. But no smut, no romance so far. There are trigger warnings in here for like abuse, violence, things like that. There's also substance abuse, as I mentioned. I think it's Wit who has a reliance on alcohol, and there is also themes of like PTSD because of the situation that the main character has lived through, and also panic attacks. I'm actually really enjoying it. I read 150 pages yesterday, and I will say that it does seem to be a little bit overwritten. Something that I do like about it is that it's written in a high fantasy style as opposed to a more contemporary style or a low fantasy contemporary fantasy kind of style. Also, I just keep shifting my legs and I have no idea why. So I do enjoy the writing in here, but there have been like a couple of sentences where I've had to read them multiple times to make them make sense because they're just a little bit too overworked and a little bit too difficult. But otherwise, I'm really enjoying it. The wolves do have, or the fae do have, separate personalities. They're quite easy to differentiate between because they all have distinct characteristics, and the main character I find to be okay. She's not annoying me, which is good. But as I said, there's no real romance in it yet. So when the romance comes into it, there is a possibility that she will start to annoy me. But so far, so good. One thing I forgot to say as well is the main character has a disability. When she was in captivity very early on, so when she was 12, 13 years old, her captives broke her foot and didn't let it set correctly. So her bones have all fused together like a lead in Throne of Glass. Her bones have all fused together incorrectly, so she struggles to walk. And that is a recurring thing because the fae that she's with now, even though they have healing abilities, old wounds are not something that are easy to heal, and with it being the foot, like, it's incredibly complicated. So there is disability rep in there as well. So yeah, I am enjoying that, and I'm going to be reading it in the reading sprints, which is a little bit worrying because I realized that there has been little smut so far that that could happen. That could very well happen when the sprints start, which is concerning. Aside from that, today was my first day making candles. I made my first candle of the year today. I made around 20. I used all the last of the wax that I had and ordered some more, but I made my first candle of the year today, and then I dropped something on it and tipped the wax absolutely everywhere, and then spent a good 20 minutes scrubbing jars. So that feels like an omen, I can't lie. It really does feel like an omen, and I'm a little bit concerned about continuing to make candles for the rest of the year now, because if the first one's going to go so terribly, then what is going to happen to the rest of them? That is a question that I'm a little bit scared to find out the answer to.
I've got a cold heart, cold hands. I make you wanna be where I am. And if you only knew my plans. Yeah, if you only knew who I am. Normally I'd break your heart. I'd love every minute, tear you apart. Late at night I lie awake, just thinking about your pretty face.
Hey guys, so last night I finished Capture the Wolves by Eva Chase, and I'm sad to report that I gave it 3 stars. I'm really sad. I really liked the writing throughout. I liked but didn't love any of the characters, but I do like the cadre. I do like the main character. The setting I also really enjoy, but this book is kind of like when Fairy goes to the spring court and just chills out for a bit. My kind of issue with it is that it just didn't feel like it had much plot. It didn't really build to anything. The kind of plot in this is that this girl is captured by these fae, and then she's rescued by this other group of fae, and she's struggling to come to terms with how she feels about that, because she doesn't mind them. She actually quite likes them, and she's living a pretty luxurious life right now. However, she is still a captive. She's not allowed to leave, and she kind of wants to go home. She doesn't want to live in captivity anymore, and she's scared that they're going to turn her over to the archlords because of the power in her blood. But that is it for the plot. It doesn't, there's not like no real dramatic conclusion or anything at the end. It kind of dragged for a bit because nothing was really happening, but otherwise I do like the characters. I like the writing. Something else I will say is that I was very disappointed at the smut level in this, because it's reverse horror and there's a little bit of smut in there, but for some reason I thought that it was going to be smuttier. Maybe it's something that somebody said to me in the comments, but I do think that there will be more smut in the sequels, and I liked it enough that I will continue. The 3rd book is released in March. I'm not sure if that is the last book, but the 2nd book is already out and the 3rd book's released in March, so I will continue and see where we go from here, because a lot of it was promising. It was just that lack of plot and nothing really happening that resulted in a 3-star rating. I have started another book this morning, where is it? It's already here. That is once again on my Bookopoly TBR, this one to read a contemporary, and that is The Ravens by Cass Morgan and Danielle Page. This is another book that I had an arc of because the UK release date was early January, and this one is the Illumicrate edition that was in the December Illumicrate box. I don't know much about this. The reason that I requested the arc is because it takes place in a sorority, but all the members of the sorority are witches. I think the 2 main perspectives in here are a girl whose like parents, her mother, her grandmother, etc. have all been like the leader. What's the leader of a sorority called, guys? Come on, US pal, help me out here. The president. She's determined to become the president of the sorority because it's something that the women of her family have always done, and the other perspective is from a girl who is attending this college that doesn't know she's a witch. So I've read 1 chapter, and that was from the perspective of the one who doesn't know she's a witch. Her mother is trying to convince her not to go to college because she's had a premonition, she has a bad feeling about it. And the prologue was very vague. Don't know whose perspective it was from, but it kind of alludes to witches being murdered so that people can steal their power. So the 10 pages that I've read of this so far were very promising, and I'm going to be carrying on with this in a little while. At the moment I've just finished packing orders. I've been watching The Vampire Diaries while I do that. However, I think it's season 5 of Riverdale. First episode is on Netflix today. I looked earlier and it wasn't available yet, but I'm so excited. I know that Riverdale is bad, guys. You don't need to tell me. I know how awful and how cheesy and just ridiculous it is, but there's something about it that's just like so addictive. It's like when I watched the After movies and I said I really like them, but they're terrible. Like they're so bad that it's funny. That's how I feel about about Riverdale, except there's just something about it that I'm really addicted to, and I do really like Cole Sprouse, like can't deny that. That is a big selling point for me. I've just started an episode of Vampire Diaries, so I'm going to pack all of my stuff away and then carry on watching this. If you guys are interested in my Vampire Diaries rewatch, I'm at the beginning of season 3. I think that this is episode 5. So I'm at peak Vampire Diaries now. It's all downhill after season 3 or maybe season 4, I can't remember. But I'm enjoying my time watching it, mainly for Damon, because I adore Damon Salvatore. And also Jeremy. I feel like Jeremy is an underrated character in the Vampire Diaries and also one of my favorites.
You drank too much. You said I only want you, only want you. When we woke up, you were gone. It was obvious. You only came through cause you had nothing to do. When we woke up, you were gone. You said you'd never ever let me go, but you just didn't wanna be alone. Sometimes it's better to be lonely than to fuck up somebody. You just didn't wanna be alone. Called you up, cause I had nothing to do. I was a little confused when you picked up and said hello. It's obvious you're not looking for love, looking for love.
Hey, so it's just past 11 PM and I'm on page 246 of The Ravens. I'm actually really enjoying it. It's reminding me a lot of There's Someone Inside Your House by Stephanie Perkins, which is like a young adult slasher book, like a slasher movie but in a book, which is, it's kind of just like a really fun young adult story that does exactly what it says on the tin, like it's a young adult slasher. This is I'm still not sure whether it's young adult or new adult because the characters are new adult age. They range from like 18 to 21, 22, but it's kind of like, it reads like a YA story, but it's set at this university where there is a sorority house of witches, and these witches are part of a coven. They're a Greek house. Can't tell you what it is because I don't understand the Greek like US college stuff, but they're known as the Ravens, and the Ravens is their coven name. And we're following the perspectives of Scarlett and Vivi. Scarlett is a legacy sorority member, so her sister and her mother were both part of the coven, and she's had immense pressure her entire life to be the president. We also follow Vivi, who moved around a lot when she was a kid. Her mother is a witch but never told Vivi that she was a witch, and she goes to college, and for the first time she plans to stay somewhere for a considerable amount of time. She goes to this party on a whim and ends up pledging for the sorority. In the background of this, Scarlett's boyfriend spent the summer backpacking, I think, across Europe, and he's come back completely different from when he left. And he used to be like a typical frat boy, although nicer, I assume, and he's come back like questioning whether he wants to be in a fraternity, whether college really matters. And Scarlett is like the complete opposite, like full college life, like legacy, etc, etc. So very early on in the book, Scarlett's boyfriend is talking to Vivi and they have a bit of banter going on. Scarlett sees, and because of this she ends up really disliking Vivi, and Scarlett ends up being Vivi's big sister when she's pledging this house. So there's a little bit of animosity between those two, but there's also something going on in the background where something happened during Scarlett's freshman year. She's now a junior. Her and her best friend Tiffany did something to two girls called Gwen and Harper. Scarlett's like experiencing spooky visions and like weird things keep happening to her, and aside from that there's like parties and witchcraft and stuff, and I'm really enjoying it. It's really fun. I like the setting of this college sorority. The sorority does add a little bit of bitchiness to the story as well, but it's also about sisterhood, and I will say that the characters can be confusing because there's quite a lot of them with it being a sorority, so like I struggle to differentiate them sometimes. But aside from that, it's just really fun. It's really fast paced and I'm having having a great time. So I'm on page 246. I did kind of want to finish this today because I want to read one more book this week, which kind of accepted that's not really going to happen now, which isn't good because after this one I still have 3 books on my Bookopoly TBR with 9 days, I think, of the month left. But I'm going to get to at least page 300 in this, which won't take me long because it is a really fast read, and then maybe read a little bit in bed and see how far I get.
And now I never wanna let you go, 'cause I know what it's like to be alone. I know it's better to be lonely than to fuck up somebody. I don't really wanna be alone. You just didn't wanna be
Hey,
alone.
it's 5 p.m. I'm feeling a little bit worse for work today. I am very sleepy, even though I got like an okay amount of sleep, and I'm also quite sore because yesterday I got up at 8 a.m. and then I did some reading, I worked out, and then I spent the rest of the day painting the landing. And it's not even like it's a super strenuous task, but just like, you know how you get like roller wrist and roller shoulder? My muscles in my shoulders and my wrists are aching a little bit today just because my arm is not used to being in those positions for that amount of time. But today I have mainly edited my Kingdom of Flesh and Fire vlog. I'm just waiting for it to export now. But before I started editing, I finished The Ravens by Cass Morgan and Danielle Page. And I have to say, I really enjoyed this, and I'm a little bit surprised at how much I actually did enjoy it. When I was reading this, my main kind of feeling was that it was just like really fun, really addictive, really fast paced. I really like the characters in here, and I really like the themes of sisterhood. I said yesterday, I think, that it reminded me a little bit in style of There's Someone Inside Your House, but it also actually reminds me a little bit of The Devouring Grey by Christine Lynn Herman, which is another book that I really enjoyed. I feel like along these lines, I really enjoy contemporary young adult fantasy, or like low young adult fantasy as opposed to high young adult fantasy, which is interesting and not something I expected. While I was enjoying it, and while it was really fun, loved all the characters, loved the themes, really loved the witchiness, but I do really like that little sprinkle of witchiness set in like a real world setting. I did think that I had all this figured out, and I was so confident at about probably just past the halfway mark that I knew what the plot twist was going to be. And then when the plot twist was revealed, I was a little bit shocked. I thought there was something fishy going on. Everything was definitely not as it seemed, but I thought I knew what was going on. Clearly didn't, because I was shocked by the plot twist in this. But yeah, 4 stars. Thoroughly surprised. Haven't read anything from these authors before, and I do actually own The 100 and Dorothy Must Die. So if you guys are looking for a fun, fast-paced, addictive, witchy read with a little bit of bitchiness in there as well, then I would definitely recommend that you pick this one up. So that is another book down for this week. Is this my second book of the week? This one was in to read a contemporary, and I have 3 books left on my Bookopoly TBR, which are actually these 3 here. But the next one I'm going to be picking up is The Mask Falling by Samantha Shannon. I forgot how weighty this one is, but this one is the 4th book in the Bone Season series. It's released on the 26th, which I believe is next Tuesday, and this series is set in a futuristic dystopian version of London where we are following a girl called Paige Mahoney, who is a clairvoyant in a world where it is illegal to be a clairvoyant. So she gets caught using her powers one day when she's on the train to see her father, and she is captured. She thinks she's going to be killed, but she's taken to this place that completely throws open the world. So the first book in this series is kind of about the place that she's taken. The second is mainly about gang politics, because the clairvoyants in this world band together to form underground crime gangs, and Paige is actually the molisher for one of the most influential gangs. So the second book, you learn a lot more about the gangs and their politics and the entire syndicate that they've got going on. And then the third one is where the plot like really starts to escalate, and the third book is honestly just sad from start to end. I believe there's going to be 7 books in this series in total, but I think they follow like 2 story arcs. So the first story arc is the first 3 books. The 4th book is a bridge between the 2 arcs, and then we will have 3 more books that will be another story arc. I've heard that this one is a little bit sad So I'm a little bit scared because there's people who are crying and really upset by the end of this. But otherwise, I'm really excited to dive in because I do really like this series. I suppose you could say this is also one of my most anticipated releases of the year. And this was sent to me by Bloomsbury. So thank you so much, Bloomsbury, for sending this my way. And I am going to be doing a live show on this book as well. If you guys remember, through the end of 2019 and the beginning of 2020, Ashley from A Frolic Through Fiction was hosting a read-along called Bonathon, and that is going to be having a revival. I believe our live show for this is going to be at the beginning of March if you are interested. There's no link or anything to share as of yet, but I would suggest following Ashley on social media if you would like to get information about that. So I think I'm actually going to go and read for a bit. I did want to work out, but I'm in pain. So I may not, but if that is the case, which it probably is going to be the case, I may go for a little walk after dinner, and then I have my Patreon live show at 10 as well. So I'll go make a start on this. I really wanted to have this finished by the end of the week, but that's not gonna happen now, especially because I'll be painting for a lot of the day tomorrow as well. But I still want to read a chunk before the end of the week, maybe get to around page 200, so we'll see how that goes. Hey guys, so it's Sunday evening now. It is midnight and I'm just about to go to bed and do some reading, but I'm on page 94 of The Mask Fall and I'm going to read at least like another 30 pages before I go to sleep. I just wanted to come in and let you guys know my progress and wrap up this vlog before I did that. So I'm actually really enjoying this so far. The first chapter, it was a little bit rough to get into just because it has been a little while since I picked up this series, but when I got past that, I'm straight back into this story. It's weird actually how much I remember about this world and everything that's going on. Like, I don't feel like it's been a year. I think it's been nearly exactly a year since I reread The Song Rising, but I've jumped straight back into here. I'm having no problem following what's going on. I will say that the writing in this, like I just said, it's been a year since I read Song Rising, so I can't be 100% sure, but I feel like the writing in here is more like explanatory. There's a lot more like metaphor and stuff in there, and the writing, especially like in the prologue, is very dramatic, like with some real heavy metaphors. Setting of this one is Paris. The world is expanding in this book and presumably throughout the rest of the series as well, so this is the first glimpse of Paris that we get. So we have some French in here. I will say that there are paragraphs that have some like quite heavy history in there because this is a dystopian and it all kind of stems from around the Victorian, I think, era. So there's a lot of stuff about like monarchs and stuff, like older monarchs. They very much influence how society is. It's like society hasn't progressed in the whole time that this like oppressive government present scion has been in power. So what Samantha Shannon does throughout this series is that she has real historical like influential figures and she makes them into clairvoyants and stuff for, hey baby, for the sake of the series. And that can be a little bit heavy just because we are in a new country, so they have different monarchs, different historical events and things like that. There's like cat hair floating around all in front of me now. So that's where I'm up to with this. And then just before we go, I just wanted to show you something, and I don't know if I can just shuffle back a bit, but if you guys remember, in, was it December or was it the end of November, I bought some wool because I wanted something to do while I was watching television. I was watching quite a bit of TV with Curtis and I need to have my brain and my hands occupied, so I bought some wool so that I could knit a blanket. Not really for the blanket, although you can never have too many blankets, but just so that I could knit something. It's not overly complicated because it's a rectangle, but there was some variety in the pattern I used, and my blanket is finished. I haven't woven in the ends yet, so I do still need to go through and do that, but it took 11 balls of wool, but we finally have a blanket, and I don't even know how much you guys can see. So there's like, is there 4 different stitches in this? You have the border, which is all 1 stitch, and then this is reverse stocking. So on the other side it is stocking stitch, I think. Hamilton, are you okay? I think this is actually the right way around. So you have the garter border, then stocking stitch. This one is, I think it was eyelet stitch. I don't quite remember the name of that one, but we have this like holy lacy pattern, and then we have reverse stocking here, and I think that this one through the middle is double moss stitch. But yeah, I made myself a blanket. I've been knitting since I was 7, and I think in all of that time I have made successfully, 2 or 3 hats and a pair of socks. Every other project I have started, I've started and then abandoned it pretty quickly. I don't know if you guys will ever remember these, but there used to be these knitting kits of the Winnie the Pooh characters, and I had all of them and I did not complete a single one, which is sad actually. I wish I still had those and could actually complete them, but I know some of them were just like real wonky because I was a kid when I had them. I'm real proud of myself. This is the biggest knitting project I have ever actually managed to accomplish, and it only took me so long actually because I ran out of wool. I bought 10 balls of wool to start off with and it needed 11, and then I think when I was working through the end of it I ran out of wool here, so I had to finish the blanket like this much on the last row. So I used a tiny bit of a 12th ball of wool, and I also ordered 12 more balls of wool to knit another blanket. Once again, I don't need blankets. I have plenty of blankets, but just to carry on making stuff to keep me off. Did you just see him run past? Did you guys see that? You think he just crashed into the wall because there's laminate flooring in here. Oh my god. Right, so he's doing zoomies, so I'm gonna wrap this up. I hope you guys have enjoyed this vlog if you made it this far. If you have, he's coming back. If you have, please don't forget to like if you liked it and subscribe if you wanna. And there he goes again. And I will see you guys next week. Bye! Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you'll go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.